Hello, everybody in Facebook land. It's Beth here from Access Paranormal. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. I'm using something slightly different tonight. So if you can, please make sure that you can use the chat box so I know that you're alive and well. I am running live. I think everything's running live. So what I will do is mention a couple of things before we get into the actual topic for tonight. And that is that the Access Paranormal page is getting a bit of a rejig over the last couple of months, and there's lots more things being added to it and kind of like bits. So one of the things that is actually being added to or changed is the Access Paranormal page for learning. So there's going to be extra bits and pieces that are going to be added to that are going to be stuff that can help you with your learning with paranormal investigating. So it's going to be tips and ideas and things that can help with editing or reviewing footage, anything that comes to analysing stuff that happens on site as well. So there's that too. So there's lots of all different stuff that will be on the particular website. So bits and pieces of it will actually start to, be added to over time. So it's growing and growing and growing. There's also another part of the page as well that you might want to be interested in if you are, just starting out or anything like that. There's the How to Get Started page, and I'll just post that up on here as well, so you guys can watch that too. So that is how to get started, and it's accessparanormal.com/how to get started. I think it's a little bit of an issue there. Hello, oh well, mate. Hi. Thank you for joining. So yes, there's lots of all different stuff happening on the website. So be sure to go and check it out as well. There's also going to be a toolkit section too. So if for anyone who really does want to know some of the things that investigators can use that can help our job be better, that will also start to be built on as well. So I'm working on that too. So all different wonderful changes that are happening as well. So it's good to see. If anyone else is in the chat room, please say hello. I'd be more than happy to see you here too. And this is going to be very interactive. So I'm making it a little bit more about not just me giving you information, but also how to have a chat with you guys as well. Hello again, Gary. Very cool. So what we'll do is I'll actually start to go into a little bit of the topic. And the topic for this one is CUB. We call each other Beeb for various reasons, of course, Ben and Beth. But what I'll do is actually go into the topic itself, which is today is about negative entities, and it's about negative activity and should you keep investigating. Hello, Kaz. So good to see you. I'm so glad that you've been able to make it. Thank you very much. And your question will be answered later in this particular session. I've made note of it as well, so stick around. So today's topic is, as you know, is about negative entities. So it's about whether or not if you come across a particular negative entity, should you keep investigating? And that's a really good question. This one was given a good couple of months ago, so I haven't been able to really come across it and work on it and research it and have a bit of a think about the best way to handle it. Also, thank you. That's so cool. So what we'll do is the first thing, a broad subject, and as investigators, we need to keep in mind we've all got different styles and different ways and different beliefs. So with this in mind, the first thing you need to think about is what your team's beliefs are when it comes to negative entities. So that's the first thing, is being aware of the people in your team and what they, hello Mason, how are you? What your team's beliefs are. And it doesn't necessarily mean if there's an afterlife, it can also be their religious beliefs as well, because that can also colour how somebody sees something as negative. So having an idea of what your team members believe in and where kind of like a bit of a general consensus of it is. So say, for instance, a team that do spirit clearings will be very sensitive to possibly something negative, as opposed to a team that might be into research or very gadget orientated. They might actually look at it as something that is they'll be less sensitive to it. So they might see it something's happening, and yet maybe a team that are very centered spiritually or shamanistic or spirit clearing might look at it and think, well, that's not a good sign, that's very disrupted, that's strong energy, we need to move this on. So it really just depends on how, again, what your team's beliefs on the afterlife and negativity is, and also how your team investigates. So how they actually approach investigating the paranormal as well. So that's the first two things. Excuse me. I always manage one cough in one of these, always. And also another thing as well, that the other stage to think about too is, well, firstly, I want to ask, do you agree? Do you agree that it's really important to be able to understand your team's beliefs and also understand what you consider to be negative and your team's style? So by all means, use the chat room. As I said, I'm going to make these a lot more interactive. It's not just me dictating to you guys. I want to know what you think as well. So feel free. While I'm waiting for those answers to pop up, what I will do is also talk about the second part of this too. So it's knowing your team, your beliefs, and also the location. The location is a big part of it. Yeah, Kaz, yes. So Kaz says, yeah, totally. Knowing your team and knowing understanding where everyone's thoughts are is important. Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, it's the location is a huge impact with that. So as you can imagine, with a private case or a residential case, if you think, and I mean, you've got to be very careful here. If you think something is negative that's going on, you've got to be pretty sure that is the case. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of implication with that. If you go to people in their home or place of work and say, I think something negative is happening in your home. So you have to be very, very careful about what you consider to be that. Yeah, exactly. As Rob posted yesterday. Yeah, exactly. It was abandoned building. So I'll definitely read that out, Karina. That's a really good comment, by the way. Karina's really interactive, got lots of great information from her and Rob based up in Queensland, here in Australia. So it really does matter about the location. So having private cases, you've really got to be sure. I personally would be very wary about saying something is negative, purely for the fact that, of course, it's someone's home. If it's a public case, then of course, or a public location, or you've hired a venue, then I think there's a lot more room to kind of push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. Not too much. Obviously, if you don't feel like you should do it, then don't. Trust your gut instinct, regardless of what belief you have of the afterlife. I think that's probably the best compass ever. Don't go into something if you don't really want to. But I really think that you've got more flexibility. So in a private case, be very, very careful. Have a really strict sort of protocol when it comes to determining something is negative, because like I say, somebody might see something poltergeist and think, oh my gosh, that's terrible, and someone might look at it and just go, oh, that's great activity, let's keep going. So that leads to the other part. If you do detect something, or if you think something is negative, should you keep investigating? For me, I would say it would depend on your team, what their beliefs are, and where you are to whether to determine. So there are so many shades of grey. As I said, private case, you are there to find answers. That's a big part of it. And again, you want to be able to get as much as you can to find out what's going on. So pushing yourself will be for different reasons. So I think to a degree, yes, but don't do it until you feel uncomfortable. But then again, of course, you've got to think about where they are. If it's a public location, it's almost like I call, and I may have mentioned this before, it's called a paranormal playground. So that's what I call it. It's definitely something where you feel you've got a lot more flexibility. You can try things out. But of course, again, don't do something you don't feel comfortable in doing. So I think it definitely depends on those three factors, whether or not you actually go forward and actually use go ahead and investigate something if you perceive it to be negative. I personally am not Christian or Catholic, so I don't believe in demonic entities. But I am open to the possibility of light, dark, positive, negative. So, excuse me again. Oh gosh, I hope you're not having earphones and you've got the volume turned up. I just blew your eardrums apart. Oh, I just jumped off there. we would say yes, but it would be an abandoned building, and it would be up to our team members to make decisions for themselves on whether they would continue or not. If doing a residential investigation, we would remove the family from their location until we contacted the appropriate people to remove a negative entity. So that's a really, really good point as well. Yeah, knowing people's beliefs is definitely important. Absolutely. A very, very, very valid point, Caitlin. Very, very valid point. There's some great comments coming up here, guys. So move the family. If any investigation became too dangerous because of the negative entity, it would be up to our team leader to ask for a vote for the rest of the team. Comments. Yeah, comments should be interesting. Exactly. That's exactly. Get your team involved with it too, because, and like I said, having a person to make that call. So trusting people's gut instincts, like I said, depending on the location, or private, huge difference there in intention of why you're there and why you're there to try and find some answers to what may be happening. But that's a really good thing. Is don't exclude anybody in the team. Everybody's input is valid, whether it's to the person who drove you there, to the tech guy, to the team leader. Everyone's input is very, very important. So that's a great system. It's a really great system. And as I said, it's very balanced as well, which is wonderful. Now, Caitlin, knowing people's beliefs is definitely important. The location can contribute to the negative feeling. That's very, very true. Just the looks of abandoned places can really give you the impression that it could be way worse than what it is. So that's a really, really valid point. For instance, an old jail, going in there with an open mind and not assuming everything. Although there is one negative spirit I've encountered and became intensely ill and super nauseous and weird dreams to follow. Upon researching, found out who and literally sent shivers down my spine. It's interesting when sometimes information you can come across can be quite distinct with the kind of experience that you might have. I can completely understand that. Upon researching, found out I'd literally sent shivers down my spine, but nobody experienced what I did that night. And I think that all comes down to one, individual belief, and two, spiritual level, if it makes any sense. Yeah, sorry for the long comment. That's completely fine. I do think that is something very important to consider as well. It definitely comes down to belief, but also your spiritual level. I know there's a lot of people involved in the paranormal that are very sensitive. I know there's a lot of people that obviously use mediums as well, and that can also be a good thing, and that can help level things out or figure out at what negativity it may be. Again, I always am cautious about relying on just one person's input from a mediumship perspective. Excuse me again. Oh, ticklish throat. Excuse me. So yes, it does, because I think that's why it's very important to include the team. I think if somebody is a medium in a situation where there could be something possibly negative, sure, their input, you choose to have one in your team, but they shouldn't be the judgment call on that. It should be a collective thing as well. I think sometimes their problems can be had with teams if they rely just on one person all the time for one particular aspect. There is a team involved. Again, for me, I'm an independent paranormal investigator. So I kind of go on my own gut feeling, and I also work with other investigators as well. So I'm happy to go with and understand and learn with that too. Some great comments, guys, really, really good comments. So it is definitely, I think, a case-by-case basis. And again, what you determine as negative. And as Caitlin said, it can also be the location can look worse than what it may actually be. And that's when you've got to take your own confirmation bias out and actually look at a place, specifically just to be able to investigate the possible phenomena. Great stuff there, guys. Really awesome. So thank you so much. If you've got any other questions, let me know. Hope you got a lot out of this tonight. As I said, head to the Access Paranormal website. There's always stuff being loaded up there with all this new things. This particular webcast will actually be loaded up there as well. But thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next week for the next question. Take care. Thanks a lot.